Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for being here. I really, really appreciate you taking time on a nice Monday night to come out and sit here. A couple things. I've handed out a photocopy of the area we're talking about when we look right here at, like, say, the Dead Sea's right about here. And the city of Jerusalem, or Jabesh, is here. Just to the north of it is the high place of Gibeah. You can maybe see it on the map there. Some of those photos are taken from the high place of Gibeah, standing on the top looking around this area. This is the high place of Gibeon. Behind that, right here, is the city of Gibeon, where the Gibeonites came from when they came over. I guess I got the Dead Sea a little higher right here. But when they came across over here to Gilgal to meet with Joshua, they came from this city. Now, when you stand here and you look directly to the east, you're going to see the city of Gibeah. That's the Gibeah of Saul. That's where Saul comes from. And you can still see the location today. Just to the north of that, just a couple of miles, is the city of Ramah. And that is going to be where Samuel's from. That's where his mom was from. That's where he's going to return after Shiloh is destroyed up here. He returns to Ramah and lives there the rest of his life. And of course, right north of that city today is the city of Ramallah. And you may have heard of Ramallah, that's just north of there. This would be Gibeah. And what's interesting is this is Jabesh. When you stand on the Mount of Olives right here, you can see the high place of Gibeah. And I've kind of tried to locate that on the map. I've got a picture looking from here, this way, east and south. But I've also got a picture looking from Mount of Olives, looking up here, and you can see that. Now, just on the Mount of Olives, there's several peaks on the Mount of Olives. One of them is right here, and this is where Nob is going to be, most likely. We referred to that last time when we were here, when the invaders from Babylon, Isaiah prophesied they'd stand and they'd look from Nob and shake their fist at Jerusalem. Well, this would be the likely place where Nob would be at. And anyway, David's going to be traveling between all these places here. Saul's court is in Gibeah. Samuel and Naoth, the Bible school, if you want to call it that, the school of the prophets, is in Naoth, is in Ramah at Naoth. That's where Samuel's at. The priests are at Nob. The remains of the tabernacle are here on the high place of Gibeah. Shiloh has been destroyed. Jerusalem is not. It's still occupied by the Jebusites. So here's your priesthood. Here's your tabernacle remains. Here's your prophet. There's your king. I mean, it's kind of interesting. They're all kind of everybody's kind of like waiting to move in. Now, you know where the Ark of the Covenant is going to end up being. It's going to be sitting right over here at a place called Kiriath Jearim, just to the north. It's not in the picture here. It's not going to come into the picture until David brings it into Jerusalem, when he sets a tent up there after he conquers Jerusalem. So it's kind of interesting. And we spent last Tuesday night when we had class going through this in great deep, more than you'd really want to be involved in. We kind of read a lot of verses. We can read Solomon. Solomon went to the high place. David wouldn't go up here to the high place. There's a verse we read last time on Tuesday night. David wouldn't go up here because he was afraid of the sword of the Lord, right here at the high place of Gibeah. Then you see Solomon, when he becomes king, he goes in and goes, okay, I'm going in. And he goes up there, and remember what he does. He offers 1,000 bulls, some crazy offering. And the Lord appears him that night at Gibeon, at the high place of Gibeon, and says, ask, what do you want me to do for you? And he says, well, what I need is wisdom. And you know that story. That happened right here. And then eventually, even after David had set up the tabernacle up here in Jerusalem, Solomon still goes up that high place where we're standing on that mound of Mount of Gibeon, looking. That's still where they were worshiping even in David's day and Solomon's day. But David would not go up there. And remember, that same angel of the Lord came in and moved in Jerusalem when he moved through the land and struck the people down for 3 days, because David counted the people. He stopped at Mount Moriah at the threshing floor, and David saw him at that time. And that may be part of the reason why he was afraid to go up and be up here, because he'd seen the sword of the Lord before. And once again, it goes back to that, it wouldn't be great to see the Lord. It's like, yeah, well, we got a few people that had a glimpse of him, and they're not too excited about seeing him again. Guys like Isaiah, Paul, David, it's like, you can go worship. I'm going to just stay back here. Anyway, you can think what you want to with that. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at. Now, David, I'm going to pick this story up here real quick. We're just finishing chapter 19. We're going to be in chapter 20, 21, 22. Who knows where we're going to end up. Here's the Mediterranean Sea. David is he's gonna be in Saul's court at Gibeah. Saul's going to send people to arrest him. He's going to flee up to Samuel, go to Naioth, and that's where we talked quite a bit about that. He ends up with the prophets. Everybody's prophesying. Samuel's prophesying. The prophets are prophesying. David comes in. He starts prophesying. Saul sends soldiers up. They start prophesying. Saul ends up laying on his face in front of Samuel all day, prophesying under the power of the Spirit. And so that's completely... that's that story right there. David's then going to take opportunity while Saul's laying on the floor, take opportunity to go over here and talk to Jonathan. That's where we're kind of at tonight. We don't know where they're talking, but they're not talking over here or in Jerusalem. They're talking in here somewhere. I mean, I think they're probably talking somewhere outside the city of Gibeah, right here. And then they're going to make a covenant. They're going to confirm their covenants. And David's going to end up going to Nob to talk to the priest. He goes to the prophets. He's going to go to the priest. And then what he's going to end up doing is he's going to end up going over here to Gath. And then when he gets to Gath, he's going to realize, I've made a huge mistake. Because now he's over in Philistine territory, and he's public enemy number one, and he's like, I'm in trouble. He's going to go then to the cave of Adullam. And I've handed these maps out, and if you're disappointed that you don't have pictures, and Rick, you don't have good pictures, you've got a paper copy. But you can go online, and they're on where it talks about Monday night. Click. There's the notes. There's going to be the maps, and there's going to be this very sheet in a PDF that you can make it bigger. It's right online, so you can see the more colorful ones online. Anyway, he's going to go to the cave of Adullam. When he goes to the cave of Adullam after Gath, his family is going to come out right south of Jerusalem here, or Jabesh is Bethlehem. Again, get this in your mind. This is Bethlehem, about 5 miles south of Jabesh, occupied by the Jebusites. The priests are in Nob, which is like, we're not even a mile away. We're talking, you just walk up there. I mean, you just walk from Jabesh up to Nob. It's just right there. It's just across the Kidron Valley. That's where the priests are at. This is about, what does it say on the map? About 5 miles away or so from Jerusalem or the Mount of Olives to the high place of Gibeon. You've got all these things just surrounding the Jebusite city. And then, of course, I'm rambling there, but I just find it amazing that they've got Nob, they've got Gibeah, they've got Ramah, they've got the high place of Gibeon, they've got the Ark of the Covenant sitting here, David and his family's from Bethlehem, but nobody's bothered to mess with this. Until David says, you know what, I'm going to go take that. And that's come up in our story. Anyway, he's going to go to Gath, he's going to flee to Adullam, the cave of Adullam, and at that time, his family is going to come down to see him. Now, don't think family reunion. Oh, it's also good to get together. They got picnic tables set up. They're eating fried chicken, stuff like this with potato salad. Why are they coming down to David in the cave of Adullam? Because King Saul is angry. He's slaughtering people. And this is David's family. They're like, what are we going to do? And you just see Jesse coming down to David. What have you done? I'm like one of the leading citizens of Bethlehem. Samuel comes down, talks to me, and all of a sudden, everybody wants to kill me and my family. What are we doing? And David, we don't know the whole conversation. I'm kind of ad-libbing, of course. But they didn't come down for a family reunion. They came down because, where are we going to go? They basically abandoned their home. And David's going to take them, guess where? You know. He's going to take them down around the bottom of the Dead Sea, over here to Moab, because guess what? That's where Grandma's from. Remember Ruth? He's got relatives. He goes, I'll take it to the other side of the family. We're going to take it to the in-laws. It's like, oh, great, it's come to that. Yeah. And they get out of the country, and David's thinking about staying there. I'm rambling through the story. And that's when the prophet Gad. Now, David, by this time, has got the priesthood traveling with him. Why? Because Saul is going to have killed the priesthood. And so they're like, where do we go now? We brought the ephod. So now David's out here in the cave of Adullam. This is amazing. David's a fugitive. His family comes. He delivers them. The priesthood comes out of the ephod, says, what do we do? The prophets come down and join him. It's like, well, everybody's trying to kill us. And so David, the future king, is hiding in a cave. The priesthood comes to him. The prophets come to him. And he goes, okay, everything's going to be fine. I think we've got this figured out. I'm no longer running on my own. I'm with God. And so the prophet's going to go over, and the prophet's there, when he gets over there, he's going to say, David, it's time to go back to Judah. And he's going to come back. And at that time, he's going to hide in the forest, probably somewhere in Judah here. There's a forest he's going to hide in. He's also going to go to the stronghold, or the rock, which most likely, again, there's several places to hide in here, but Masada. We know Herod was there. We know the Jews' last stand was at Masada. In fact, Biblical Archaeology Review this month has got a big article in there about Masada. From the Romans' point of view, it's kind of fun to read. But David, it talks about the Lord in Psalms. Just about all these things are, I'll try and throw them at you as we go through. But all these are detailed with a psalm. David wrote this psalm after, Doeg, told the priest, told Saul about David visiting the priest. And David writes a psalm. He writes a psalm from the cave of Adullam. Then he talks about the Lord being his rock and his stronghold. And it's interesting, the word for Masada and rock, it's the same thing. We don't know exactly for sure, but there's pretty good indication that David, that's a great place to hide it if you've been there. You can see everything from there. There's only one way up. It's easy to defend. And David was there. And we do know for sure that right beside Masada, right in this area, is En-Gedi. And we do know that Dave was at En-Gedi, hiding in the hills, and some of us were there too. And now you got fresh water. So anyway, that's all going to be taking place. I try to detail some of that on your map. Okay, well, anyway, that's enough of that. Any questions about that? I mean, that's kind of like a review of a lot of information. Chapter 19, 20, 21, going up to chapter 22. That's all going to kind of take place on here. It's a great story, especially when you know kind of where some of the details are at. One of the questions I would always have is Saul's trying to catch David, and it's not that big of an area. You'd think he'd be able to track David. But the thing is, once you get there, there's so many caves, there's so many hills, the hill country, there's so many rocks, there's so many places, especially for a guy like David who's familiar with the wilderness. And I'm going to say this while I'm thinking about it. And while David's going to be in this period of running from Saul, it's going to be a lengthy time. He's going to develop some character. It's a test. It's a test for David. What he's going to find out, what's going to end up happening is, if you don't read the story right, or if you just look at it just skip through it, you get the impression David's running around hiding from Saul. But like we've already said, the priests are running with him, the prophets are joining him, some of his family's with him, and all of a sudden David's got an army. Well, because there's a lot of fugitives, just like in any kind, whenever there's a poor leadership, a poor king, an oppressive king, Proverbs talks about this kind of thing. The good guys, the guys with wisdom, the guys with ingenuity, the guys with, faith, willing to defend the country, if they're willing, I will use the word patriotic more than they are loyal to Saul. If they're more loyal to Yahweh, their loyalty is to the country. Their loyalty is to truth and wisdom. And Saul comes in and says, "Forget all that. I want you to follow me." Well, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to become fugitives. And that's your best men. And a lot of them, the fugitives, they're running down here. And the Bible would call them fugitives, or men that have ran counter with the law. But it's almost like these are the heroes. It's one of your typical, just like David now Saul is going to present him to the country as an enemy. And the country's going to hate David because, he's trying to kill Saul. Well, there's a bunch of other men out here in the wilderness also running from Saul that are going to start gathering around David like a magnet. And so David talks about David's mighty men. They could have been Saul's mighty men, except for the fact that Saul was too concerned about a mighty man becoming greater than him. He was too concerned about a variety of other things, too selfish, that he drove all those people away. And David, by the time he's done running the wilderness, he's got an army that's better than anything Saul's got. In fact, his army is going to go over and fight with the Philistines. And that's all that's coming. So don't think David's just running around by himself. David, by the time he gets done moving through here, it's a large group of people able to fight Philistines, fight the Amalekites, able to deliver cities. So a lot of good things are going to happen. But here we go. We're going back to chapter 19. I think we've read through chapter 19, if I remember right. I think we're in chapter 20, but I want to just pick up in chapter 19. Saul is trying to kill David, and David tries to tell Jonathan, he's going to try to tell Jonathan that he's trying to be killed. But when you get down into like verse 11, 12, and 13, that's when Saul sets up men outside David's house to capture him in the morning. And that's where David slips out at night out of Gibeah and goes up to Ramah to see Saul. His wife puts it, what is here is called a teraphim, but in some of the translations it's an idol. It's probably some kind of a family heirloom, family image. That has some kind of property value as far as it's the title deed to some property or something. She puts it in the bed so David looks like he's in bed, and the men go back and tell Saul, well, David's sick, he's in bed. He says, well, bring him here into the bed, I'll kill him right here. And then they come back and they realize, well, it's a stone statue with goat hair on it. Now Saul's upset. And that's where you got starting in right around verse 59, or excuse me, verse 11. I've got written in my Bible Psalm 59. And many of you probably already know that, but Psalm 59, it says, I want to go there and read that psalm to you. Well, in fact, I'm going to. I'm not going to read the psalm to you, but I just want you to see this, Psalm 59. And just look at the title of this psalm. You know the story. David's fleeing from Gibeah to Ramah. His wife's making him look like he's in bed. The men are outside the house, the apartment or whatever, waiting to kill David. In the morning they go in because he never goes to work. Find out he's in bed. Well, now listen, while all that's going on, guess what David's doing? I'm going to write a song. At least that's the impression you get. It says Psalm 59. Are you there? For the director of music, to the tune of, quote, do not destroy. You know how sometimes you take the lyrics from a popular song and you rewrite the lyrics or something? There's a popular song everybody sings do not destroy. David says, you know what? I got some better lyrics for do not destroy. So he doesn't write the music, he just rewrites the lyrics. It's a psalm of David, a miktam, that's some kind of a musical term. And here's when he wrote the lyrics. When Saul had sent men to watch David's house in order to kill him. So it's like, he says, you know what? This reminds me of a song. I want to write before I run, Mikhail, I want to write some lyrics down. Or I don't know if you memorize it, if you wrote it while he's running, whatever. But that's when he wrote these songs. Maybe while he's running from Gibeah up to Ramah, he's got that rhythm in his head, the melody in his head, so he's just kind of running and making up words as he's running or something. And then he writes them down later. So that's a pretty catchy song. Anyway, that's Psalm 59. And that's throughout the first Samuel, you find stuff like that. Okay. Starting in verse 18, that's when David goes up to Ramah, and up in Naioth, that's again the school within Ramah, the school of the prophets, where they train them to prophesy. Music was involved, the Spirit was involved, ecstatic speech was involved. They give themselves over and they begin to speak by the Spirit. I mean, it's very, very charismatic, if you want to say it that way. But that you read about that up until verse 24. Now, chapter 20. Here we go. Then David fled from Naioth at Ramah. Again, Naioth is the school of the prophets in Ramah. And went to Jonathan and asked, what have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to take my life? So we don't know where he's at. I figure he flees back south towards Gibeah. Never, Jonathan replied. Of course, he denies. Why would he hide this from me? But David took an oath and says, your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes. And he has said to himself, Jonathan must not know or this will grieve him. So he says, obviously he's not going to tell you. He knows we've got a covenant. So now he's kind of bringing Jonathan along. Jonathan's denying this and David's trying to prove it. Verse 4, Jonathan said to David, whatever you want me to do, I will do it. Remember, these two guys have a covenant. And it's going to play out here where Jonathan is going to defend David. Later on, the tables are going to be turned, even by the time we get done with this conversation, and Jonathan's going to be seeking David's protection. Right now, David's seeking Jonathan's help. So David said in verse 5, look, tomorrow is the new moon festival, and that's emphatic, I am supposed to dine with the king, meaning I'm supposed to be there, and I'm not going to be there. But let me go hide in the field until evening and until the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him David has earnestly asked permission to go and hurry down to Bethlehem. And this may be why the family is going to flee down here, because he said, well, I'm going down in Bethlehem. We'll go down and check. Just like Herod went down to kill the babies, Saul surely is going to go down and kill anybody related to David or hiding David or protecting David. Verse 7, if he says, very well, then your servant is saved. I've misjudged him. But if he loses his temper, and he's going to, you can be sure that he is determined to harm me. As for you, you show me kindness. And like I said, I think we've talked about this before, but verse 8 right there, there's two covenant terms right there. As for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into a covenant. In other words, he's holding Jonathan to the covenant. He says, you show me kindness. In other words, and that doesn't mean be nice to me. It doesn't mean, say kind things to me. That means when it comes to choosing between your father and me, the country and me, other men and me, you make sure you choose me because I've got a covenant with you. And that's what that's the word hasid. It means covenant loyalty. If I'm guilty, then kill me yourself. In other words, and he says, you come over to my side. And if I violated the covenant, don't let Saul kill me or some other men kill me. If I violated our covenant, you kill me. You come over here and show me kindness. It would sound, I'll be nice, bring me flowers or something. No, it means you come over here and you either support me or you kill me yourself. And it's a covenant term. Never, Jonathan says, if he had the least inkling my father has determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? David asked, who will tell me if your father's answers harshly? Come, Jonathan says, let's go out into the field. So they went out there together. So now maybe they're leaving the city going outside of Gibeah so that no one can hear them talk. Then Jonathan said to David, by the Lord, the God of Israel, I will surely sound out my father by this time of day tomorrow. If he is favorably disposed towards you, I'll send out word, and they're going to shoot some arrows. We'll read about that here in a minute. But I do want you to notice in verse 14. Now, this is Jonathan speaking. But show me unfailing kindness. Jonathan says, let's get out of the city so no one hears us talking. They're outside of Gibeah somewhere talking. And he says, okay, now listen. I want you to make sure you're faithful to me. Now look, here it begins. David is on the run. He said, I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know what I've done. And he's on the run. Jonathan says, okay, enough of the talking around here. He says, listen, when it all happens, he says, you make sure you remember me. And David would be like, remember you? It's like, you're the prince. Jonathan, well, watch him right here. Show me unfailing kindness like that of the Lord as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth. Basically what he's saying is, and he's going to refer to this again later, when you become, we all know you're going to be king. And he says, I'm on the ground floor right here. I've got a covenant with the future king of Israel. And you're asking me for help right now, and I will help you. But understand, the tables are going to be turned. Now this just shows you the insight Jonathan has. Jonathan is asking a fugitive to make sure you're faithful to me, because you're not going to be a fugitive forever. And when that happens, show me kindness and make sure you show kindness to my family. So Jonathan is securing a covenant with the royal family of David for all time. And that explains that story. You know what story that explains, right? Mephibosheth. That explains the Mephibosheth story that's coming up. David is trying to say, I've made a deal. Jonathan's going to be dead, but he's going to keep his deal with Jonathan. Verse 16, so Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David. There again, another covenant term. He made a covenant with the house of David. This is the house of Saul, with Jonathan's line, making a covenant with the house of David, which is, again, David, Solomon, Rehoboam, all the way through until Jesus. Called David's enemies to account. Verse 17, and Jonathan and David reaffirmed his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. And again, that word loved is covenant terminology. And that's part of the covenant. I will defend you like I would defend myself, but I'll expect you to defend me like you'd defend yourself. It's not a lot about emotion. I'm sure there's emotion involved. I'm sure they're friends. I'm sure they like to sit down and go out to eat together and stuff. But this is not about being buddies and emotional. This is covenant terminology. Verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow's new moon festival you will be missed, because my seat will be empty. The day after tomorrow towards evening, go to the place where you hid when this trouble began, and wait by the stone of Ezel. Now, I have no idea where that's at. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it as though I were shooting at a target. I'll go out, pretend I'm taking some rifle range practice or something. Then I will send a boy after me. In this day, they'd shoot some arrows and they'd send someone after them. So you go out and pick your shells up because you want to shoot them again. If I say to him, look, the arrows are on this side, bring them here, then come, because surely the Lord lives. You, as the Lord lives, you are safe. There's no danger. If I say, oh wait, no, you're too far. They're on this side. That's a sign for you. The boy's going to be completely confused. But that's a sign to you. You can come home. Everything's fine. Look, the arrows are beyond you, then you must go. If I say, no, you got to keep going, that's me not telling the boy you got to go. But the boy might say, I've got the arrows already. What are you talking about? He said, I'm not talking to the boy. I'm talking to you. You start running. And David's going to then run from there. Well, where's he going to go? The priest. I'm looking for some kind of protection. He doesn't know where to go. Okay. Verse 24, so David hid in the field, and when the new moon festival came, the king sat down. I'm in verse 24. Verse 25, he sat at his customary place by the wall opposite Jonathan. And again, the place that they're sitting, we don't know, we haven't found that place, but we have found, not we, but they have found the remains of a public building from this time period that has basically been destroyed now because they built over it. But this very location may have been within reach a few years ago. But anyway, he's sitting by the wall opposite Jonathan. So Saul's on one side, Jonathan's on the other side. And Abner, don't forget Abner, General Abner is the general of Saul's army. He's related to Saul. Sat next to Saul, but David's place was empty. So you see, David's kind of moved into the ranks of, he's sitting with the king, the general, the royal prince, and now David is supposed to be there at the table with him. So David's not just another soldier. He's right there with the general and the family members, the prince. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he is unclean. But the next day, the second day of the month, David's place was empty again. Then also he realizes something's wrong here, because you would have been clean. You're missing 2 meals in a row here. Then Saul said to his son Jonathan, why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered, David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. Now Saul reads right through this, you're making up a story, or you're covering for him. He said, let me go because our family is observing a sacrifice in the town, and my brother has ordered me to be there. If I found favor in your eyes, let me get away to see my brothers. That is why he has not come to the king's table. Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him, now again, this is a very nice church translation that you can read in church, okay? Or Sunday school, you read this to the Sunday school children, but just, think R-rated movie or beyond, and think you got a king that's willing to slaughter people. He's going to slaughter the priest here in just a little bit, and he's about to insult his son. So here we go. You son of a perverse and rebellious woman. Fill that in more colorful language if you'd like. That would be, He didn't say that flow. I'm not sure what other translations all say, but it's very harsh. Don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? Now, the idea here is Saul is trying to, you can see what's happening. Saul's trying to protect his dynasty, his claim to the throne, and David, he feels, is a threat. Now, David is not trying to take it, but obviously he's been anointed. But Saul is saying, we've got to fight, and what you basically got is a man fighting against God, because God has chosen David. And Saul wants Jonathan to join with him, but notice what Jonathan, in his insight, has already done. Jonathan, who is wiser than his father, more righteous than his father, has already made a covenant submitting himself to the man God has chosen. You understand what I'm saying? And it goes both ways. David will protect Jonathan, Jonathan will protect David. It's like Saul could have done that very thing. I mean, there could have been something it didn't have to end like this. But nonetheless, he's saying, you're to your own shame, meaning you're cutting your own position off to the throne. As long as the son, and now here's a key right here, verse 31. As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. You will never get to be king because that son of Jesse is going to take the throne from us. And Jonathan's like, yeah, everybody knows that. It's like, I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna go along with it. I'm following God, not man's will. Now send and bring him to me, for he must die. Now, Jonathan, there's so many proverbs popping in my head right here. I think probably because I've been working with some reps and sets. But how you try to talk to a fool, it says you can't read. A fool can only be taught with punishment. A rod is for the back of the fool. You cannot speak to a fool. If a person is a fool, they think they're wise. In fact, Proverbs says, don't even answer them. They're speaking like a fool, don't even answer them. But it's like, well, wait, if you don't answer them, they're going to think they're right. So you're going to have to answer them, but you can't answer them with wisdom because they can't understand wisdom. You're going to have to drop down to their level and talk at the level of a fool. Now, where do you see that at? You see that in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 when Paul's trying to reason with the Corinthians, and they're all following the false apostles. He says, you guys don't even understand, but I can't talk to you like a wise man. I've got to drop down and speak like a fool and start boasting to you so you realize, hey, I'm just like the false apostles, but I'm the right. He's got to talk like a fool. And he says it. So you can't answer a fool according to their folly, but if you don't drop down and talk like a fool, they'll never hear you. Well, anyway, this is Jonathan now basically trying to talk to a fool. And what else would you expect him to do? But you're not going to convince Saul. So here's Jonathan. Verse 32. Why should he be put to death? What has he done? Jonathan asked his father. And here's Saul's response. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him. Now remember, he's sitting on the other side of the table against the wall. So he grabs his spear. Yeah, you always bring your spear to supper. Bring it and hurled it at John, tried to kill his own son. So it's like, there's that proverb. Don't try to talk reason to a fool. Just let it go. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Okay. So Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger. You ever had one of those family fights, those big blow-ups, everybody, runs away from the table mad and crying? Not at our house. Never happened at our house. But this would be one of those, you maybe see it on TV shows or maybe at other people's houses. Then Jonathan, he got up from the table in fierce anger. On that second day of the month, he did not eat because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David, which was not just socially unacceptable, but it was a death wish for the family's name. In the morning, Jonathan went out to the field for his meeting with David. He had a small boy with him, and he said to the boy, "Run and find the arrows I shoot." As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrow had fallen, Jonathan called out after him, Isn't the arrow beyond you? Then he shouted, hurry, go quickly, don't stop. And the little boy says, must be a special arrow, and takes off out of there. But that was David's cue to do what? Take off. The boy picked the arrow and returned to his master. The boy knew nothing about this. Only Jonathan and David knew. Then Jonathan gave the weapons to the boy and says, go carry them back to town. After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times, which would be a sign of honor, recognizing him as royalty, with his face to the ground. And then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Because why? Jonathan's going back home. David's like, I'm not going to Bethlehem. I'm not going to Ramah. I have no idea. And you can tell he has no idea because he's going to end up in the capital of the Philistines. It's like, obviously David has no idea. So he's like, David is right here at this point, completely lost. I have no idea what I'm doing. He's got the promise, he's got the anointing, but there's a long way between that point and the throne. And it's going to be a test for David. David wept the most. Realizing the life that God had chosen for him. In other words, it's not going to be an easy path to the throne. Saul's not going to say, here, you take the throne. It's like, the way to the throne is through the wilderness. It's like, oh, really? We have to do this? Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for we have sworn friendship, again, covenant, with each of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord is witness between you and me and between your descendants and my descendants forever. Then David left Jonathan and went back to the town. Chapter 21. Okay, now here's David on his own. Now David right now is alone. And now he's going to think. He's scrambling. Now there's a psalm about this too. Oh no, let me read on. David went to Nob, to Ahimelech, the priest. Ahimelech trembled when he met him. Isn't that interesting? Why are you alone? Why is no one with you? Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to do this. You remember Eli the high priest? He's got Hophni and Phinehas the sons. Phinehas is one of his sons. There's also going to be, Phinehas is going to end up having a son named Ichabod. Remember, the one that the glory has left. Okay? And then there's going to be another son, an older son named Ahitub. Ahitub is, you got Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas. Phinehas already has a son named Ahitub. When Ichabod is born, the glory has left. Ahitub is going to have a son, and that son is, David went to Nob to Ahimelech, the priest. Ahimelech trembled. That's now, he goes from here down to Nob, and he goes down and sees Ahimelech, and that is Phinehas's grandson, or Eli's great-grandson. Also called Ahijah, depending on different translations, other different places that it's writing. He's going to have, just so we know it, Ahimelech is going to have a son named Abi-Athar. And you don't want to forget that name, Abi-Athar, because when this whole thing plays out, this episode in Nob is played out, everybody's going to be killed, including Ahimelech. And Abi-Athar is going to escape with the ephod and catch up to David at the cave of Adullam. Says, what is going on? The king just killed the entire priesthood. So here, that's what's being set up right here. David went to Nob to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech trembled when he met him, knowing that this is not normal for just walking the grounds here. David answered Ahimelech the priest. The king, again, if you know where we're at with Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives, Nob is, it almost, well, you can see on the picture I've had out, it's like part of Mount of Olives. It's just a little bit to the north. You can stand on the Temple Mount and look at Nob. It just keeps rising up. It's one of the highest parts. And I've got a label. I'm looking from the high place of Gibeon. You can see I've got it drawn on there. You can see where Nob's at. Again, they haven't found a stone that says Nob. We don't know for sure. There's no excavation site there because, again, nothing was really permanent at that time. But as far as the location and its references, that plays in real well. Again, is Nob over here? Is Nob over here? Where's Nob? I mean, other references Nob, it gives the impression it's right in this area, and that's likely the place it's at. I mean, that's just a lot of scholars would agree with that. But there's no archaeological proof of that. It just kind of makes sense. Okay? David answered Ahimelech the priest, the king charged me. Now here, watch. Now here's the lesson that we're about to learn. David is going to try to play this, we talked about before, a chess game. Saul is playing a chess game against the man who's anointed. David, his only example has been Saul, for example, here. He's got Samuel and his dad and maybe some other people around him, and he's going to eventually pick it up. But he's going to try to play the same kind of man versus man chess game. I'll move here, you move here, I'll try to think 3 moves ahead. So Saul is trying to kill David. So David now is trying to play this game. And when you play the man's game, it involves half-truths and manipulation and deception and sleight of hand and this kind of thing, instead of just saying, hey, come get me. And right now, David is playing the chess game in man's views. He's playing a chess game from his human position. And again, we all do this at one time or the other. He answered Ahimelech the priest. Now, in other words, what he's going to do, he's going to lie. He's going to tell him half-truths. He's going to tell him lies. He's going to completely deceive him. And when it's all said and done, the priest is going to get killed because of David. And then David's going to realize, when you play man's chess game, innocent people get hurt. I might want to just stick with the anointing and just see how the chips fall. Doesn't mean be stupid, doesn't mean not be wise, but it means don't lie, don't tell half-truths, don't manipulate other people, don't be deceptive, just tell them the truth, play the game, play it smart, but remember, you are anointed. David answered Ahimelech the priest, the king charged me with a certain matter and said to me, no one is to know anything about your mission and your instructions. It's so secret, no one even knows what we're doing. Oh, so don't ask me any questions because I can't tell you. I don't even know myself. It's so secret. Oh, okay, I won't say anything. I know you won't because you don't know anything. As for my men, oh yeah, it's a good question. Where's my men? Where's my army? Yes, good question. I have told them to meet me at a certain place. Of course, I can't tell you that either, but they do know where they're going to meet me. Now then, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever you can find. I need something to eat. It's like, why didn't you bring some supplies? Oh, it was such a secret and it's such a rush that we didn't even take time to pack a lunch. So I stopped here. But the priest answered David, I don't have any ordinary bread on hand. We don't have a restaurant here. There's some consecrated bread, provided the men have kept themselves from women. It's bread that's been set aside for the priest that people have brought in as an offering here. And so now, at Nob, we already know on the high place of Gibeon right here, there's some remains of the tabernacle, but now we also know that there's some offerings or something being brought to Nob, to the priest there, that there's something at Nob also, maybe some other remains of the tabernacle. Okay, so now again, you know the story. Jesus is going to use this example later on in his ministry. So don't you remember when David's men, and it was all fictional because they really don't do it, but he uses an example. Verse 5. David replied, Indeed, women have been kept from us as usual whenever we set out on a mission. Yes, of course we stay away from women, yes. Holy be the men. The men's things are holy, even on missions that they are not holy. How much more so today? Oh, and today is a very holy mission. Have I told you how holy it is? So secret, so holy, no one knows it's so holy. So the priest gave him the consecrated bread. Oh, okay, sounds good. Again, this is Ahimelech. Now remember, this line of priests was cursed. You remember that? Samuel announced a curse against the line of Eli's sons. So that means something's going to happen here. Abiathar is going to become the high priest. But we do know that can't last because this line is cursed. And there's going to be some tension in David's ministry because you may have heard of Zadok. And so there's going to be another priest pop into this picture here because of some confusion. And you're going to just watch this line. Abiathar is a great man, but his family has been eliminated from the priesthood. He's just kind of handing the baton off to someone else. But anyway, that's all going to be taking place here. Okay, now here's the problem. Now, one of Saul's servants was there that day, detained before the Lord. He was Doeg the Edomite, Saul's head shepherd. So this is an Edomite from down south. He was good with sheep, I guess. So Saul hired him as his personal royal shepherd. And for some reason he was unclean. He was detained a day, waiting to catch up with. He was there. And he's watched this whole thing take place. It's kind of like, yeah, this doesn't look right. You might think it's a secret. You might, something's wrong here. And he's heard rumors from the palace. He's been in it, he's kind of got an administrative position. So he's been at some meetings, and this doesn't sound right. And this could be a big opportunity for Doeg to kind of move his way up the ladder in Saul's court, have some inside information. So Doeg is going to report this, not partly out of loyalty, but probably out of a chance to promote himself. Now, here's where I'm sorry I'm going to do this to you, but go to Psalm 52. Go to Psalm 52. Because, of course, when this all comes down and all the priests get killed, what is David going to do? He's going to remind him of a song. And so Psalm 52. Psalm 52, for the director of music, a miskil, again, that's a musical term, means a fast song or a slow song or a song with drums or a song without drums or something. No one really knows. That's why, in fact, it's not even translated. That is the Hebrew word, miskil. It's not. Does anybody have a translation of that phrase? There's just a miskil in everybody's. I mean, we don't know what it means. So what is your saying?
A mournful chant.
Contemplative.
A mournful chant.
A mournful chant. And so what they're probably doing is taking that word miskil and going back and looking at some root words, that mean other things around it, that other words are built like it, and try, mourning, contemplative, something like this.
This one says futility of boastful wickedness.
Okay. So here it is. So for the director of music, a miskil of David, when Doeg the Edomite had gone to Saul and told him, David has gone to the house of Ahimelech. So this is what David writes. Why do you boast, O evil, you mighty man? Boast of evil, you mighty man. Why do you boast all day long? You who are a disgrace in the eyes of God. Your tongue plots destruction. It's like a sharpened razor. You who practice deceit, you love evil rather than good, false rather than speaking the truth. And then Selah, which we pretty much know what that means. That means stop and keep playing the instruments and just think about what you just say. In other words, and there's your contemplate. It's like, you love every harmful word, O you deceitful tongue. Surely God will bring you down to everlasting ruin. He will snatch you up and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. Selah. Think about that I just sung to you. And you can read the rest of it. Anyway, I just want to show you that's there. Okay, we go back to chapter 21, verse 7. I mean, that's kind of neat. There's a lot of things in that you can work with. Verse 7 now. Verse 8. David asked Ahimelech, don't you have a spear or a sword here? Surely you guys got some kind of weapons here. It's kind of like, well, no, we're the priesthood. We got sacrificial knives. Oh, but wait. We do have one thing here that someone is dedicated to the temple or the tabernacle or the Lord's presence here. It's Goliath's sword. So in other words, David says, oh, well, here, let me just read it. Don't you have a spear or sword here? I haven't brought my sword or any weapons because the king's business was so urgent. Again, this is getting more illogical as we go. You're on a secret mission for the Lord. You didn't bring food. You didn't bring men. You didn't bring any weapons. No. This is really top-notch operation. Okay, the priest replied, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine whom you killed in the valley of Elah is here. It is wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you want it, take it. There's no sword here but that one. In other words, and now again, think right there. Now that right there is a reminder to David. You were on the wrong track. You're looking for defense, and you're going to grab Goliath's sword. Let's just think about this a little bit. How did it end up here? A man trusted in his sword, and you trusted in the name of the Lord, and you killed him, and you brought his sword here as a dedication to the Lord because his name is greater than the sword. And now you're here to get what? The sword. I think maybe we should give you a blessing and a prayer and send you off in the name of the Lord instead of Goliath's sword. But David, of course, is not thinking right now. It's all learning. He's on a learning curve. So he says, David replied, there's none like it. Give it to me. Okay, now he's got a sword that a man that used to have a 5-pound arrowhead on the end of his spear. I mean, how big is this sword? David's dragging it along. Well, here we go. David is not thinking. He's lying. He's being deceptive. He's making up stories on the run. And if you're a parent, you can see the lie right here, right? You can say, it's like, you're making this up, aren't you? Well, how do you know? Well, because I used to lie too when I was a kid. Okay, verse 10. That day David fled from Saul and went to, guess where? Achish, king of Gath. So he goes from Gibeah to Ramah, back to Gibeah, meets with Jonathan, goes to Nob, grabs some lunch and Goliath's sword, and heads where the logical place to go would be. Gath. One of the capital cities of the Philistines. I'll go there. They'll understand. Yeah, they'll recognize you too. Your face on all the posters. Because, I mean, how many Philistines has he killed over the last several months? Including Goliath. And guess he's walking in town with whose sword? Goliath's sword. It's like, what are you going here to taunt them? What are you doing? But at this point, again, I can't tell you, and maybe you could imagine or think about it, but something in David's mind says this is the play. Let's go over to Saul's enemies are the Philistines. And remember, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Maybe that's what he's thinking. Okay. Chapter 21, verse 10. That day David fled from Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath. But the servants of Achish said to him, isn't this David, the king of the land? Now notice what they're calling king of the land. He's like one of the leaders over there of the Israelites, our enemy. Isn't he the one they sing about in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. Yes, I'm tired of that song on the radio all the time. Yes, that's the song. So it's like even the Philistines know about David's success against them, obviously, and that he's a hero over here in Israel. So David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, king of Gath. It's like, oh, they're not receiving me very well. They think I'm an enemy. So now he's got to come up with something. And he's entered their gates. He's in their city. It's not like, I've changed my mind. It's like, no, you're to the point of commitment. You are in the city of Gath. You are in Achish court. His men are talking about you. They're whispering. It's like they're pointing at you. They're surrounding you, taking their weapons out. It's like, okay, this is not working out well. Can I see Achish? Yeah, just a minute. We're going to tell him you're here. Okay, so David realizes, well, I guess this is right here, was very much afraid of Achish. So what now? Now, what do you do in this situation? Well, he's playing the chess game. And you've made 2 or 3 bad moves, so now you've got to come up with a worse move to protect your other bad moves. So now, what is he going to do? It's like, I know what I'll do. I'll act like an insane person. I'll act crazy. The hero of Yahweh, who killed Goliath in the name of Yahweh, is now going to act like a crazy man. What a great testimony to the power of God. Okay, so now again, the reason this is going to work, and this is very logical, in their minds, is that a man that was crazy had a spirit that controlled him. And if you killed him, the body was dead, and so the spirit, the demon, whatever, would be like, I need to go somewhere else. Oh, here's a close one, and would jump on the closest person. Who's the closest person? The guy with the sword. So it's like, if you want to protect yourself, just act crazy, because who's going to kill you? I ain't going to kill him. You kill him. I ain't going to kill him. Well, then just get him out of the town. He had obviously no threat. Just get him out of here, because I don't need any more madmen. So now David's going to escape by what? Faking like an insane man. Again, he's not dumb, but he is definitely not following God's plan right here. Okay, so again, remember how it's already described David. How does it describe David earlier in his battles? He was very what? Crafty, very skilled, very wise in his... That's the kind of strategy he would use throughout all of his battles. And now he's alone in enemy territory, in the royal palace of the enemy. And it's like, now how are you going to get out of this? I got a plan. Of course he does. Okay. So verse 12, David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, king of Gath. So he pretended to be insane in their presence. And while he was in their hands, he acted like a madman, making marks on the doors of the gate and letting saliva run down his beard. So he's fighting these imaginary dragons, chopping at the doorposts. We're being invaded. And saliva's coming down his mouth. It's like, okay, I don't think this is the same guy who killed Goliath. I remember someone quite a bit different out there on the battlefield. And David said, great, it is working. And so now, and they bring him into Achish. Now he steps up his game in front of Achish. So Achish, the king, said to his servants, look at the man, he's insane. Why bring him to me? Am I so short of madmen that you have bring this fellow here to carry on like this in front of me? Must this man come into my house? Get him out of here. David says, perfect. He just kept spitting on his beard, and they escorted him out of town. Okay. Now he's outside of town. It's like, now I better get my act together. And he realizes, man, I've made some mistakes. Verse 22, chapter 22. David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And again, we don't know exactly where the cave of Adullam's at, because there's so many caves. There's a lot of ideas and different things that you can see. If you go through and walk through the hill country of Judah, you can find caves and big rocks and different things. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down to him there. Because again, and there's a Psalm 142, Psalm 141. Also, Psalm 34 and 56 should be at the end of the last chapter. So if you want to read about David and of course, when David leaves Ahimelech, or Achish, he's going to do what? He's going to write a couple songs. That was quite an experience. That'd make a great song. So he writes a song. So Psalm 34 and 56 at the end of chapter 21. And then Psalm 142 and 141, apparently, right around chapter 22, verse 1 and 2. Now, so his family comes down, and he's going to take them over here to the other side in just a moment. Verse 2, all those who were distressed or in debt or discontent, bitter of soul is another translation, gathered around him and he became their leader. So when he goes to the cave of Adullam, he's like a magnet. People are coming to him. His family comes, he's going to deliver them. But other people that are outlaws, again, like I described, you can call them outlaws because Saul's calling them outlaws. But if you're an outlaw in Saul's society at this time, you maybe are very patriotic. You might be one of the heroes. And that's what a lot of these guys are men that are wise. They know better. Even Jonathan himself would have probably fled down to David if he wasn't the prince. So these outlaws, these people that were discontent, gathered around and become their leader. About 400 men were with him. You got that? 400 men with him. And when we talk about the cave of Adullam, now all of a sudden, okay, broaden your picture. It's like, oh, hey, here's a cave, and crawl in and hide in the cave. It's like, right, okay, everybody else come on in here. It's like, okay, now we've got to get a bigger picture. David's in a cave, the men are sitting out front of the cave. I think we found David. He's the one in the cave that all the men are sitting out front waiting for. So there's going to be, and there are, larger caves that you can get 400 men in and move up and through the caves and places that you can camp in and hide in. But remember, 400 men. From there, David went to, here it is, Mizpah. Okay, because he himself, remember, David is 1/8 Moabite. He's from the tribe of Judah, but he's 1/8 Moabite. And we could talk more about that whole lineage, about, because Solomon is going to be the son of Bathsheba, who's married to Uriah the Hittite. And if Bathsheba's a Hittite, that makes Solomon half what? Half Hittite, and 1/16 Moabite, which only leaves, what would it be, 7/16 Israel. So Solomon is more foreign than he is Jewish, if you want to do the math like that. Anyway, that's kind of interesting. From there, David went to Mizpah, and you can see it on the map. That's on this side. It's right on the coast on this side of the Dead Sea. And he said to the king of Moab, would you let my father and mother come and stay with you until I learn what God will do for me? He says, God is about to do something for me because I've got some prophecies, but I'm not sure how it's all going to pan out. So he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him as long as David was in the stronghold. Now there's that word stronghold. That may be Masada. Can't say for sure, but that's not the cave, that's not the forest. That's another word. That's a rock. That's the rock fortress. And again, here is he's over here already, coming up on the Dead Sea on this side. It'd be an easy stop off right there. So I'm going to go up to the stronghold. Again, that's not a guarantee, but it's very, very likely. It's at least worth presenting. But again, just think about his family. You're Jesse, who is already an old man. You've got 7 or 8 brothers who are in Saul's army, and they're older than you. You're the youngest brother. And your whole family is now what? Foreigners in a foreign land because of, what have you done? And the brothers, they weren't real popular or weren't real supportive of David when he came out and brought them the supplies. Remember, they're mocking him. Aren't you? Where's all those little sheep that you're with? Now all of a sudden, they're leaving the country because of him. I'm sure there had to be some tension in that family. It's like, what? This is not what we had planned for our retirement, was to flee to a foreign country because our son gets crossways with the king. Okay, verse 5. So now David is over there and goes strong. Verse 5, but the prophet Gad, now here's a prophet traveling with him, said to David, do not stay in the stronghold. You can't stay here. It's too easy. Go into the land of Judah. So David left and went to the forest of Hereth. And that's, again, probably somewhere in the land of Judah here. We don't know, but he's just moving around with his men. Verse 6, I do want to at least finish this right here somehow. I got to read this because this is part of our story tonight. Verse 6, now Saul heard that David and his men had been discovered. Okay, maybe at the stronghold. And Saul, spear in hand, was seated under the Tarmisk tree on the hill of Gibeah. Okay, where Gibeah's at. With all of his officials standing around him. Again, these officials would be men that haven't crossed him or have got no ambition or completely playing man's chess game. They played right in, they got positions. It's all going to fall apart on him. His administration is not going to last. Saul said to them, listen, men of Benjamin. Most of them have been from his tribe. He's given favorable position to the men of his tribe. Will the son of Jesse give all of you fields and vineyards? Okay, he's bribing them. Keep their support. Will he make all of you commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? Is that why you have all conspired against me? He accuses them of not being faithful. Promise them promises. Accuse them of not being faithful. Now it's their play. Show me your support and I'll give you all these gifts. No one tells me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. He has found out someone told him that Jonathan's made a covenant. None of you is concerned about me or tells me that my son has incited my servant to lie and wait for me as he does today. Verse 9. But Doeg, the Edomite, who was standing with Saul's officials. Oh, here's my moment of glory. Here's my golden ticket to the top. I'll get a cabinet office out of this. I won't be the chief shepherd. I'll be on his cabinet or something. I saw the son of Jesse come to Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, at Nob. Ahimelech inquired of the Lord for him, so David had Ahimelech ask God for advice. He also gave him provisions, the bread, and the sword of Goliath the Philistine. I saw this myself. Okay, promote me. Then the king sent for the priest Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, and his father's whole family, who were the priests at Nob. And they all came to the king. So now all the kings are standing, all the priests are standing there in front of Saul at Gibeah. They've been ordered to come from Nob again. It can't be that far away. Listen now, son of Ahitub. Yes, my lord, he answered. Saul said to him, why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, giving him bread and a sword and inquiring of God for him, so that he has rebelled against me and lies in wait for me as he does today? Now, Saul's got control of the media, okay? He controls the media. And he's telling the media, David is trying to kill me. And he tells them that every day. And everybody here, you got to begin starting to feel sorry for him because they think David is the enemy. They think David is conspiring against Saul because he controls the media. And so now they tell the priest this. Ahimelech answered the king, who of all your servants is as loyal as David? Don't talk logic to the king. Do not talk to a fool like this. No, who is as loyal as your servant David, the king's son? He's your son-in-law. He's the captain of your bodyguard and highly respected by your household, meaning Jonathan's got a covenant. I mean, he's in charge of your bodyguard. If he wanted to kill you, you'd be dead. He's got a covenant with your son. How does that even make sense? He's highly respected. I don't know. Why would he? That doesn't make sense, Saul. Don't. That's not a good way of approaching Saul. Tell him it doesn't make sense. Was that day the first time I inquired of God for him? He comes down all the time to Nob. Of course not. Let not the king accuse your servant of any of his father's family, for your servant knows nothing at all about this whole affair. I had no idea this was going on. But the king says, you will surely die, Ahimelech, you and your father's whole family. There's a good call. Yeah, that's what happens when you talk logic to a fool. And the proverb says that. He'll kill you. He'll abuse you. He'll insult you. Then the king ordered the guards at his side. Now these guards are all been promised fields and lands and vineyards and things. Then the king ordered the guards at his side, turn and kill the priest of the Lord. If I was going to say this, I definitely would have left that part of the Lord out. I would say just kill the priest. Don't say kill the priest of Yahweh. I'm not going to do that now. Talk about demons jumping on you when you kill somebody. You have Yahweh coming at you. It's like, turn and kill the priest of the Lord, because they too have sided with David. They knew he was fleeing, yet they did not tell me. He's making the story up, you can tell. But the king's officials were not willing to raise a hand to strike the priest of the Lord. It's like, yeah, we've been to some of Saul's Bible classes, and yeah, you don't do that and get away with it. I'm not sure what your problem is, Saul, but we're not going to kill the priest with a sword. The king then ordered Doeg, who's looking for advancement in the kingdom, you turn and strike down the priest. So Doeg, the Edomite, turned and struck them down. That day he killed 85 men who wore the linen ephod. 85 men wearing white linen up into the presence of the king, standing in order, standing there weaponless. None of the men of Israel will kill him. Saul's completely crazy. Doeg says, will I get a promotion? Will I get a pay advance? Will I get a new office, get a corner window? All right, I'll kill him. So he slaughters the 85 of them. He also put to the sword Nob. He doesn't just kill the 85 priests. He goes down to Nob and starts slaughtering anybody that's there. And somewhere in this part, either running out of Gibeah, which is hard to imagine, is Abiathar, the high priest's son, or he was back here taking care of stuff, unclean, not feeling well, something, and sees this whole thing coming and grabs the ephod. It's likely they didn't bring the ephod with them, whatever. Somehow, Abiathar runs down to David at Adullam, Cave of Adullam, or excuse me, into the forest here. I lost my place. Where are we at here? 21. Oh, I'm almost done with the chapter. Okay, but Abiathar, son of Ahimelech, son of Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, escaped and fled to join David. He told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. Then David said to Abiathar, and again, can you even imagine? The son runs down to the man who has caused the death of his entire family, and the whole priesthood has been slaughtered. He runs down to him, and David clearly has got himself back in fellowship with God. He's confessed sins, he's confessed mistakes, he confessed lack of faith, and now he's back in. He's got the prophets talking to him, he's got his faith back in track, he's remembering the anointing, he's no longer playing the chess game. Watch this. Then David said to Abiathar, that day that when Doeg the Edomite was there, I knew he would be sure to tell Saul, I am responsible for the death of your father's whole family. Looks right there. No excuse. It's not Saul's fault. It's my fault. I should have known better. I mean, when you see a fool behaving like this, and you do something to give the fool an opportunity, you can blame the fool, but you knew the fool was going to do it. It's your fault for getting the thing set up. He says, I'm responsible for the death of your father's whole family. But watch this verse. I love this right here. I'm done. Stay with me. Don't be afraid. The man who's seeking your life is seeking mine also. You'll be safe with me. It's like what? Because I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm trusting God. I've got a new plan. No chess games. You're at the right place with the right man at the right time. Get ready. Some things are going to happen. Now, can you see the difference from David crying and weeping with Jonathan, lying to the priest, going to Gath, and then going through this whole thing, and then the priest coming down and telling him. Now, again, that happened fairly quickly. That's a matter of days that happens. And he says, okay, nope. He said, I made some mistakes. It's my fault, but I'm back on track. Don't worry. It's going to be fine now. Just stay with me and enjoy the ride. Kind of an exciting way to end right there. Of course, David's got some other challenges that we've got here. But hey, I'm going to pray. I do appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Father, we do thank you for your word. We thank you for your truth. We thank you for the opportunity to study your word. We do ask that you lead and guide us. Keep us in your will. Help us to avoid the many chess games that men play and the things that we can get into. But Father, to learn to trust you, to walk in your words, to live righteously, to speak righteously, and to know that you're always there leading and guiding us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, thank you for your time.